to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundy, we got a couple of different news pieces to talk about around the league. A lot of front office stuff. A couple of trades, a couple of firings, a couple accusations. So we're kind of all over the place with this one. Do you have anywhere you want to start with these?
Let's go to the Rangers. Start with the New York
We got to
Rangers and
get through some of them. They've
the
got quite a few.
yeah they made quite a few big moves over the weekend. Kind of kick-starting it. Start off with a big trade. They traded somehow. They were able to trade Jacob Trouba, his entire contract, no salary retention, to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for defenseman Euro Vakanainen and a 2025 fourth round pick. That is the full trade there.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. It's it's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about, like, was this a good trade for this team? Was it a bad trade for this team? Like, it's hard to start there when, like, how could they trade Trouba? Like, it's wild that they were able to do it. And Jacob Trouba, for those who don't know, is making $8 million for the next 2 years. He has a modified no trade clause, so he has, a 12-team no trade list. Sorry, this season he has a 15-team no trade list. Next year he has a 12-team. Yeah, next year it's a 12-team no trade list. Trouba didn't want to get traded, and he didn't want to get traded to the Ducks or the Columbus Blue Jackets, but it sounds like they were going to put him. Oh, was there another one that was in on it?
Well, it sounds like there was a couple teams, but the team I guess that was really interested in that he didn't want to go to, the Detroit Red Wings. And
that makes sense.
To make it even more interesting, Trouba is from Michigan. So
he really just doesn't want to.
He really didn't want to go back there. And again, with Trouba, though, kind of the big thing is, like, obviously his wife, I think she's a nurse or something along that lines. And that was kind of the big reason why he went to the Rangers in the first place, because she was kind of doing her schooling there and was working at one of the facilities. I again don't know which one, but it sounds like going to Anaheim, allows her to still have a lot of opportunities and whatnot within her career. So, that kind of played a big part for it, and I got to respect Trouba for that. For kind of, not only kind of doing not maybe what's best for him, but kind of looking out for his family as well. So, do got to respect that for him.
Yeah, and it sparked up a lot of controversy around the league, because basically the way this trade got done was there's all these teams that he doesn't want to go to, and he's allowed to say, I don't want to get traded there, because he has the 15-team no trade list.
That he earned, by the way. It wasn't just given to him. Like, he earned that when he
negotiated for it. Maybe he would have got 8.25 over however many years the contract was if he didn't have the trade protection. He probably paid several hundred thousands of dollars to get that, and it didn't mean anything, because the Rangers said, "Okay, if you don't want to get traded there, we're going to put you on waivers, and we don't even know if you'll get to Columbus, but Columbus is pretty high on the waivers list, and we know they want you.
Yeah.
So you'll be taken by either the Ducks or the Blue Jackets. Don't even worry about the Red Wings. You're not going to make it that far on the waiver wire. You're not going to a good team." So he said, well, I guess I have to pick the best of the teams I don't want to go to and waive my clause for that team.
Well, actually, Detroit's before Columbus even.
Good God, how is that possible?
Detroit's not good.
Isn't it based on last season's standings?
No, it's current season.
Oh, wow.
It's just currently the way the standings are as of right now.
Funny, he might have got to go to Nashville. Not that that's what they need. They need goal scoring there somehow, but
yeah, Nashville won't even be able to afford him. I mean, it's still a win-win trade. in my opinion, like obviously it's a huge win for the Rangers because they're able to offload Trouba's salary. They now do have $6.6 million in cap space going throughout the rest of this season, so they can be buyers if they're willing to trade their first round pick this time. They can go out and add pieces. Obviously, after the trade, we'll kind of talk about the big part of why this happened and what the Rangers are able to do with that freed up money. For the Ducks, like it's not even bad though. Like you have lots of cap space. You really don't have many, big contracts. You have to give out this off season because Trouba's only signed for this season and the following.
Yeah.
So it helps kind of keep you above the cap floor. He's like his contract great? No, but he's still a good defenseman. He can still log solid minutes for the Ducks. He's still a great leader. Like he was named captain for a reason, whether you think it was an odd choice or not. Like he's still a great leader. He brings lots of valuable qualities to the Ducks. So it just kind of sucks
exactly
that
what they
the
need
Rangers
right now on the timeline they need it.
Yeah.
If anyone goes out there and thinks, man, God, I hate this Trevor Zegras guy. He's flashy and he did something annoying earlier. I'm going to go take a run at him. And then they got Captain Radko Gudas and his buddy Trouba standing beside him. You're probably going to think twice about it. Like, they
also got
some
Ross
mean
Johnson
sons of
in the
bitches
lineup.
there acting as bodyguards.
Yeah. The only thing you could say, like, sucks for the Ducks is, and not even, but their own fault. It's by the Rangers, playing that whole, well, we'll just throw you on waivers, and because now, in most situations, like the Ducks probably could have gotten Trouba in a second. I don't know if a first would have ended up happening because there's only 1 year left after this one. Probably, but you could have gotten Trouba in a second. Now. You could have got a third. You could have got a prospect. Like you could have gotten something for future considerations. You wouldn't even, or even if you didn't want Vakanainen, you could have just threw him in there to make the player for player work. You wouldn't have had to give up one of your own draft picks. But the way the Rangers handled it, which again, like respect to the Rangers because it is a business, and it's I don't want to say respectable because that's not the right word, but like I'm not going to sit here and be like, like it's a business and every team's trying to win. And this was amazing for the Rangers. Like it's solid. If I was cheering for a team that, maybe not quite the way they handled it, but along those lines, it's like, you know what? It puts us in a way better position to win. All for it. So kind of sucks for the Ducks, but again, they're getting the better player in the trade. The contract doesn't hurt them.
Yeah, it's a good trade for them. The biggest loser here is Trouba, and that sucks. That it's worse for a player. And don't get me wrong, I don't even really like Trouba. Like he's a total
essentially run out of New York, like by both management and the fans at this point.
Yeah, and it really sucks. And reportedly, there are several players around the league and agents that are reportedly really upset with how the Rangers handled this. And it's really kickstarted a lot of players saying that they want to streamline player protection clauses in the next CBA because all these other guys are looking at that. They've got their no trade clause and they're going, okay, so my no trade clause doesn't mean shit. Like it sounds like the main thing that players are upset by is that you can't choose a no trade clause if it's modified, like if it's just for 15 teams or whatever. You don't get to pick them when the trade comes up. You submit that at the start of the year, and it's these teams I can't be traded to. And the players are arguing, if I have those teams on my no trade list, I should be exempt from being claimed by them on waivers. I should not be able to be waived and go to those teams. If I get waived and go to, Colorado or somewhere that's not on there, fine. But they shouldn't be like, we want to trade you to Columbus. No, okay, you're on waivers. Have fun being a Blue Jacket. And I think that's a very interesting take because the whole point of the no trade clause is that you pick the specific teams you don't go to. And I think it should probably make them exempt from going waivers there. Because waivers exist to help the player, not the team. it's supposed to give guys who are NHL caliber a chance to play on other teams if their team is really good and can't make room for them.
Yeah.
So, like, honestly, players should be able to choose whether they want waivers or not, in my opinion. I think the league should be like, hey, Trouba, do you want to go on waivers or do you want to play in the minors in New York? And he should have that choice. But
Yeah.
if that's probably not going to happen, so the next best thing would be, at least your trade protection works for waivers and trades.
Yeah, which I mean should work. Like it's crazy to look at the Rangers and the two albatross contracts they had on their team in Barclay Goodrow and Jacob Trouba. They managed to get out from both of them, not having to retain any salary, and they got a player to pick back essentially because Goodrow was thrown on waivers because he refused to waive his no trade clause to go to San Jose, and they really wanted him. They wanted to bring him back, so the Rangers like, hey, well, you know what? We'll just put you on waivers, and they'll claim him for free. Which, again, like it's what is that? That's about like almost $11.5 million.
You can
Actually, I
do a
think
lot of
bit
stuff
over
with
11 and a
$11.5
half.
million.
Yeah, well, I guess
And we know
jump
exactly
right
what they're
into
doing
it.
with it.
Then Rangers signed not long after, like it was maybe an hour after the Trouba deal.
Yeah, it was basically a trade and sign, just not the guy involved in the trade.
Yeah. The Rangers signed their franchise goaltender Igor Shesterkin to an 8-year contract extension, $11.5 million per year, resetting the goalie market as he wanted to do. What are your thoughts on all of this? I guess as a whole, both the finalized trade and then the signing here.
It makes a lot of sense on both sides. Obviously, Shesterkin making way more than any goalie has ever made in a single contract. He wanted to reset the goalie market. I think he has with this. I think he wanted to reset it a little more. I think he sees guys out there there's quite a few guys at this point making 12 or more. Draisaitl starting next year is going to be making 13. Or no, was it 14? Is Draisaitl making 14?
Yeah.
I kind of think he is. So, like, I do think Shesterkin wanted to at least hit 12. Unfortunately, he's had a rocky bit the last bit, and I think that's why the Rangers really wanted to kick Trouba out the door quick and get this done. He had a bit of a rocky last 10 games, and they said, you know what? This is the only time we're going to be able to save pennies on this guy because they know how elite he is.
Yeah.
And so they said, we can get him down to 11.5. Go for it. And you know what? I think it's a good deal for the Rangers. I think it's a good deal for Shesterkin. You know what? Since it is the Rangers, let's check out their cap friendly. I'm very interested to see if he has trade protection.
I got to imagine it comes with something.
It's a modified no trade clause. He didn't get the no move. A 10-team no trade list for the entire duration. How much does that mean to the Rangers? Doesn't look like a lot.
That's his current. That's the current deal he's on.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to see the other one. At least from the
full no move clause. All 8 years.
Oh, he does have it. Okay.
All 8 years of the contract. $92 million total.
And you know what? After watching Goodrow and after watching Trouba, you have to get the full no move clause, especially signing there. But guys around the league, I think, at this point, you're not bartering over money, taking a little bit of a pay cut, and you're getting this much trade protection. It's you take that same pay cut and you say, no, this shit's fucked. I get the full no move. We both know I get the full no move. If you're a guy worth paying any more than $5 million on your contract, you say, nope, I get this and I don't have to sacrifice money for it because that's just like where the league's going at this point.
Yeah, well, it's
I think we'll see a lot more full no moves going forward.
Well, one thing with the no move when you look at the Rangers is obviously Miko Zibanejad is not at the strongest start to the year. He's really been struggling, whether it's just a rough patch or whatever. I don't know, but Rangers fans are already starting to turn on him. He still has 5 years left on his contract after this year, making 8.5. He's got a full no move clause. So if the
Yeah,
Rangers we're done with him, wanted to get out from him, that one I don't know how they would manage to pull that one off, as he does have a full no move clause with his.
that's too long to trade. Like that's one you have to eat. Unless you're like literally just giving up insane stuff.
Hmm.
Like if I'm a team going into a rebuild or something, like if I'm, Pittsburgh or like a team in the middle of a rebuild like Chicago, even then, I'm only taking that if you either retain a bunch of money or it's like 3 first rounders. Like 2 first rounders and a prospect for Zibanejad's contract is still a relatively easy no, in my opinion. Like that's a long time for a lot of money.
I don't know, because if you think
With
about
the
it, right?
assumption that Zibanejad, finishes out this season not being great, and
Yeah, like
there's the
if he's
obvious slip. If he's a 90-point
yeah.
player, it's pretty easy to take him.
Well, I think even if he's a 70, I think if even if I don't know if the Rangers, but if even if you work out a deal where you're getting some assets back to take him on, if you get the Rangers to retain whatever 750,000 or something, just to lower it down a bit, and then if he plays with you, if he does good, if you want to if you take the route of what San Jose did, like how many years does Hurdle have? I think he's still got like 6, and San Jose is retaining 1.1 million or something. Like if you do that with a guy like Zibanejad, so then you're flipping him again. Like if you're moving him at 6.3, like anywhere from like 6 mil to 6.3, you could flip him. You could potentially get a decent haul back if
If he turns it around.
even if he's still like a 70-point guy. Because with
I
the
was gonna say,
cap
I'm looking
going
at his
up,
stats. I thought he was
not
doing
bad.
way worse. I thought he was at like 11 points on the season.
Yeah, like
He's
he's
got
not having a good year by his standards, but I mean, again,
It's
like
barely even below his standards, really. I guess point wise, goal wise,
basically,
he's not scoring, but
yeah,
he's got 20 points in 26 games. Like, what's that on pace for? Probably 60, something like that. So
yeah.
that would be lower than his standards. The last 4 years, he's at 81 points, 91 points, 72 points last year.
Yeah,
But
like it's not even like he's bad. It's just you know, if you're a first line center on the Rangers, you're expected to be dropping 100 points essentially.
yeah,
That's kind of just the way it works there. Um,
yeah. He's only ever got
I
up to
mean,
91 as a career high. So
yeah, it's still very solid. Overall, I mean, it's obviously there is going to be players like there already are players around the league that aren't happy with the way the Rangers handled it. It's probably going to affect
I think it'll
if
affect a
players
lot of
want to go there in the
contracts.
future in free agency, and if they do, you're probably like asking for just a full no move clause, even if it's like for a 3-year deal or something, just because you know Jacob Trouba and Barclay Goodrow didn't have they signed the contract and they were supposed to have some leverage and kind of have a little bit of a say in where they go, and they both got dumped to bottom feeders in the West to to miss the playoffs for the remainder of their contracts, which is unfair to the players because
They sacrifice
they
money to get those
yeah,
clauses, and they mean shit. Like
and now they still go to a team that again they're not going to be playing in the playoffs. They're going to be losing constantly. Like it's just tough
which doesn't
environment for
help
the
their
players.
value for their next contract either when they
Yeah,
inevitably want to sign somewhere, whether that be re-signing there or signing somewhere else. It's hard to
yeah.
get more money when you know, if you're not doing a ton and you're on these lower teams. So
So,
yeah, it's
for the Rangers to move these 2 contracts and get assets back and immediately take all that money that they just cleared up to give it to their franchise goaltender, you know, I like that for them. That's solid work there. Like it's
yeah,
impressive. It's exactly what they needed to do. But the way they went about it
it's smart
is
work.
very bad.
It's
Like it's
it's
just poor the way they went about
yeah,
having to do it all, especially to the players.
yeah,
Is not fair to them.
yeah, yeah. I would not have had a problem with it if the NHL stepped in and said, "Hey, sure, the rules are here, but the NHL has always reserved the right to be like, no, we're just gonna nix this and say you can't. And you know what? If
Mhm.
they did that with either this or the Goodrow situation, probably the Goodrow situation since it happened first, I would not have had a problem with it because it is pretty scummy for them to just be like, yeah, we can't trade you there, but you'll get picked up off waivers because
Like, even if they
naturally
kind
the
of
first teams if in the waiver order are probably a lot of the teams on no trade clauses, right? They're the teams that
yeah.
aren't doing as good. They're less desirable because of that, and uh, they're the ones you're
Well, because
going to if you're on waivers.
the only teams that could fit Trouba's contract are, you know, teams at the bottom, like bad teams. Like even San Jose doesn't have the cap space to. Well, actually, they definitely don't now. But even at the time, they didn't. So you're only looking at a handful of teams really that can take on Trouba. But he probably doesn't want it. He probably had all those teams on his no trade because he doesn't want to go to a bottom feeding team. You know, he wants to be on a contender team, and that's fair. He earned that right. So even if the Rangers just kept kind of like pushing him until eventually just gave and said, "Okay, I'll waive it," that's one thing. But the threatening of putting him on waivers where he could just end up anywhere. They're like basically being like either waive it or we're just gonna put him. I just really don't like that. That's not fair to the player one bit.
Yeah. Even if he was just not good enough to play for them at this point and to get the slight cap relief, whatever it is, like half of his contract, and they could just send him to the minors, even that would have sat better with me, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it's the fact that they knew exactly which team in order could and would take him, and they said, "You're going to go here. We know you hate that, so you're going to waive your no move clause." And
Yeah.
that's when yeah, it's just really not great.
Overall,
And
I give the trade for both teams. I give both. Well, I'll give the Rangers an A plus
both
because like it's a great
both
trade.
teams
Anaheim,
crushed it.
Anaheim. I'm still giving. I'm gonna give A minus.
Yeah,
Like it's still an A because you're still getting an impact player, a player that makes your team better. Like whatever you want to say about True, but he's better than a lot of what was going in and out of Anaheim's lineup on the blue line. So
yeah.
and the cap
Um,
really does them if you want to retain half of it next year and flip them for 4 mil at the deadline, or even find another team
oh,
like
I
another
would.
team that was like if willing to eat a little bit of it. Like you could get like not nothing crazy, but you could at least get assets back. You could maybe get a second
Yeah,
or something, second or third,
if you retain
depending on
four
how he
mil,
plays.
and then Chicago's not going to be contending in the next 2 years, get them to retain another 2 mil. Now somebody has Trouba for 2 million, and you know what? I bet if the Devils were facing the Rangers in the playoffs, they would love to send Trouba out there and go in, and now he's hitting your guys, and he's going after your guys, and you can't fight McDermott or whoever when you're on the same team. Like they would bully the Rangers a little bit if they had Trouba, and I bet that would
I would
feel very
love
crowded
that.
for Devils.
The only problem is the Devils' blue line is just too crowded, unfortunately. As much as I would love that, because like hell, you still have Seamus Casey and Simone Nemec down in the AHL.
Who do they got in
Like,
their
that's
blue
how
line?
deep their blue line is.
Dougie Hamilton, of course, Brett Pesci, Brendan Dillon, Jonas Siegenthaler, Luke Hughes. Who's their sixth guy? Nick
Kovacevic, I think.
DeSimone or Kovacevic?
Kovacevic, I believe, if would be.
Hmm.
Like
Luke
I
Hughes
think he's
still
been
looking
playing
for
all
an
year.
extension. Still got the
Yeah,
one year
got
left
got
on
to be
his
coming
contract.
eventually, right?
Yeah, just I can't imagine that's a guy like they're going to sign him. They
Yeah.
have to.
Oh yeah.
He's going to
Yeah.
be great, and you got Jack Hughes here. Like that.
I just don't know if it's going to be a bridge deal with Luke Hughes or if or it's just going to straight up just right away be an 8 mil.
He looks like he's going to be great. Like Quinn Hughes is amazing. Jack Hughes has been great, and Jack Hughes, one of the best bargain deals in the league because you got him in long term before he fully broke out. So
Yeah.
just all the reasons in the world seem to be there to just try and be like, we don't think you're quite as good as your brother. Sorry, you can't get 8, but like we can get him for 8 years at 6, 7. Hell, just match it at 8.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that's still a real good deal for them going into the future. I see a lot of people saying he's not very good. Do people not realize he's still 21 years old?
Yeah, people are too quick to.
This is the first year of his life where he can go out in the States and buy a drink.
Yeah.
Like, and he's a defenseman who notoriously, you know, take a bit longer to develop. So,
And like when we talk about Luke Hughes, we know, he's going to be one of the better offensive defense in the league. Like he's not going to be this great guy in his own end, right? He's going to be a top pairing guy. Maybe plays a little bit on the penalty kill, but I wouldn't even put him on the penalty kill. But he's
yeah.
he's going to go out there. He's going to drop at least, in his prime. He's going to be at least a 65-point defenseman or more. Like at minimum, it's going to be probably 65.
Yeah.
He's going to go out there. He's going to rack up points on the power play. He's going to be a leader on the back end. Like I think if I was the Devils, I would just lock him up.
Yeah, just get him in long term now. You're going to want to keep him long term, so don't even mess around with the bridge deal. Like the bridge deal, like maybe it makes you a little more comfortable with where he's at when you sign the deal, but it's going to be wait for more. That's the only draw for him. Like, just if it was a guy like Luke Hughes on another team, I wouldn't hate the bridge deal idea. The fact that they have Jack Hughes, like having 2 of the Hughes brothers is a massive part of this team's identity, really. And you're signing him to a long-term deal, so just do it now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Moving onward, though, where do we want to move off to next? We can go off to Ottawa. We can travel to Chicago. We can travel to San Jose, Colorado. Where do you want to head to?
Oh, I mean, God, let's talk about Ottawa a bit, because somehow we're still talking about the Rangers. So there was a article that came out. I want to say it was New York Post, or at least a guy who works from the New York Post, who made some article about how the Rangers have been looking into it, and there's trade rumors about Brady Tkachuk going from the Sens to the Rangers. I'm pretty sure it had already been like deemed as false. I'm pretty sure the guy in the article said, I don't remember exactly which NHL insider. It was like Frank Saravalli or one of those guys, right? And he said, this big name, he agrees with me. He knows that this is all real. That guy immediately tweeted out and said, no, this is false. This is not real. I've never heard of this in my life. So like right there, it should be dead in the water. It's done. Unfortunately, it's the internet. Everyone's talking about it. Spreads like wildfire. The guy lied, and people are talking about it. And to the point where the Senators' owner came out earlier today and accused the Rangers of soft tampering with Brady Tkachuk, and he's wanting the league to do something about it. Of course, now an owner is making that accusation, so now the Rangers have responded and said, we are absolutely not tampering. None of this is true. And I don't think they're like charging him or like trying to get the Sens owner in trouble, but they're saying they're like accusing him of like, making bias or baseless statements and negligence of knowledge or some shit like that. There's a lot of a brouhaha over one dude who lied blatantly on Twitter.
Yeah, I really haven't been following this story as much. This is
like,
kind of
people
the
are
first time
just-
hearing of a lot of this, but like, yeah,
It all broke in the last like 2 days. Like so much of this happened this morning because people are just reading stuff and immediately reacting to it. And I'm talking about like the owner of the Sens. Like he read this and like he didn't even go and see the Saravalli tweet where he's like, yeah, no, I didn't say this. It's not real. He just immediately was like, this is bullshit. The Rangers can't do this. That's my player. Like, it's
I mean, with the Rangers, there's always going to be lots of stuff surrounding them just because they are a bigger franchise, and especially with the stuff they've been doing. Like, yeah, it's And that's something that, especially after the way, everything that just happened with the Rangers of the past 6 months, someone putting together something like this it's enough to get a lot of people like on board with being like, oh yeah, it's real. And so
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mess created from pretty much nothing, but you know what? It's fun to see this stuff happen every once in a while in the NHL. I mean, fuck,
yeah,
we see so much.
this has been so far like the most chaotic first 2.5 months of a season that I can remember. We're not even 2 months in, actually I think we're right around the time of two
Probably
months
about that.
about 2 months. It's been chaotic, it's been fun, there's lots more on the horizon. So there's no better time to be a hockey fan than right now
Yeah, yeah, it's a
with
lot of fun,
everything
and
going on. Like,
there's definitely more talent than there's ever been in the league. Like,
yeah,
I know people will look at Team Canada and they'll say, I don't know, this isn't as good as the 2014 team or something like that, which fair. But if you look at every single team as a whole, like, dude, who's the worst team in the league right now? Like, if you had to pick one team in the league to go out and lose a game, it's probably the
Chicago.
Blackhawks
Yeah.
or the Sharks or one of those teams. I take any of those teams 9 times out of 10 over the 2011 Florida Panthers.
Oh yeah.
Like, the bottom teams in the league a decade ago were fucking bad.
Well, okay, so
Like they'd have like second line guys that you've never heard of. Like their
yeah.
whole team could be scratched.
But like, even think about it this way: like the last time we kind of the and it technically was kind of best on best, but also kind of wasn't, because there's like some weird stuff in mix. But like the World Cup of Hockey, right? 2016. What was the finals in it? Canada versus Europe. A bunch of countries that only had like one or two players from each, all collectively come together. Wasn't US, wasn't Sweden, wasn't Russia, wasn't Finland. Like it was just Europe.
And
It
I
was just a
love
bunch of
that.
these countries against Canada. That was back in 2016. That's 8 years ago. So when we get up to the Olympics, obviously we're not gonna, have that, but like Canada's still gonna be like Canada's gonna be one of the top teams. US will be. I don't know if we'll have Russia for it, so I'm not going to include them. Sweden, Finland,
Probably
but
not.
you look at how good Switzerland's gotten. You look how good Germany's been getting. Czechia even has been a prominent force in World Juniors and World Hockey Championships. Like,
A lot of good Czech players at this point in the NHL. Like, yeah,
yeah, we're finally
could
getting the
definitely be one
Olympics
of the better
back. We're
ones.
going to be getting the Four Nations face off once a year. We get the cool frozen frenzy of all 16 teams, which should happen more often and not on a Tuesday, but that's a different debate. Like,
Yeah.
lots of big trades. Like, it's just a good time to be a hockey fan. There's lots of drama spewing around. It's a blast. We're having a blast every day here.
Like it's so funny because hockey is so blatantly getting better and better, even with the league seemingly trying to shoot itself in the foot whenever it can.
Yeah.
And so as soon as Bettman's done, if we have a guy who's even slightly better than him, I think the league's going to exponentially get a lot better quickly. I
I will
think a
say
lot.
though,
I think in the 20 years that this CBA's been around, there's been guys having so many ideas on ways to make it better that when it finally happens, like, unless Gary Bettman just says no to everything with an iron fist, then it should be great.
I will say though, and it's the last thing I'll say on it, and then we can soldier onward. I get people don't like Gary Bettman, but first of all, he's a fun dude. Any interactions you see with him and whatnot, he just feeds into it. He kind of just knows that, like, this is if you're the commissioner, like, you're never going to be universally loved, right? More often than not, more people are going to dislike you than like you. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
He leans into it. He has fun. He has good relationships with the players and like media guys. He does good things for the league. He maybe doesn't do the amount of stuff that people want him to do, but it's slow progression that we are getting, right? Like it's
He
kind of a
he
slow build
actively
of like,
slows it down though.
He does. He does. I will say that. But, you know, he understood that the Arizona wasn't going to work. So moved on from that. That's his bad. He owned up to it. You talk about how bad Florida was in 2011. Back then, how many people were like demanding they get relocated or whatnot, get him out of there. It doesn't work. He kept pushing and said, no, I can see the market here. It can work. It will work. Look at Florida now, selling out games nightly when they only
I
used
mean,
to have like
I
15
don't think you can
fans.
put that on Bettman that
Sure, you can.
after 15 years, a team finally rebuilt. Like, of
Sure, you
course it
can.
would work, and it would work in Arizona if they waited long enough. Just not under the current ownership.
Arizona, yeah, but that's the thing, right? Arizona, there was a lot of stuff with it, but again, like I'm not saying I'm a
Arizona
huge
is
Gary Bettman
100% a
fan, but
hockey place. It just
people,
needs an
I
owner who
I
gives a
agree.
shit.
But people say Gary Bettman's ruining the league. He's doing all this. I'm like that's just false. Like if he doesn't do the stuff you don't like, you want the league to kind of see. Okay, fine. But to say he's bad and ruining the league and whatnot, I think is false. He's made dumb decisions, but
He's holding the
you
league
know
back. I
everybody
think is pretty
makes dumb
fair.
decisions. I wouldn't say that.
He constantly, not even downplays. He outright says that there is no science for CTE. They will not
Okay,
improve
that's different though.
stuff like
That's
that.
different though. Like that's a
It
whole
relates to
side
hockey and
thing.
his job. I don't know how it's that different. Like, don't get me wrong, he's
That's
a fun
not slowing the
personality, and he
game
has
down
to
though,
be
or
in
the
his job.
progression of the game and the league of the product we get though.
And he's the one
Like
in charge of,
if you
are
want
we
him to
getting a
take
new
CTE
Department of Player
serious,
Safety? And we're
Department of
not
Player
getting that.
Safety, yes. But
Like,
if you're
we need
going
a
on
new
the
head of that. George
if
Peros
you're
is a
going on the
psycho.
path though of him not taking CT seriously, you need to be on the side of taking fighting out of hockey. You need to be on the
You
side
don't. You
of
don't.
you
You
throw a
don't. We don't have to
headshot,
make arbitrary lines in the sand. We can have both.
but literally the main cause of CT is comes from the fights.
But
The
like
repeated trauma and hits to the head.
you're never going to take all head injury and brain injuries out of sports.
Yeah, no,
Got
it's
We'll
impossible.
still get one a year by guys falling down on their own, no contact.
Yeah,
I'm not even necessarily on the
you'll get
side
one
that
now
fighting
going to
needs to
play against
stay.
Anaheim. You go
I
play
would
against Anaheim,
prefer
you're gonna get one.
like
Don't know from
I,
who, but you will.
yeah, like you there's a middle ground. There's a middle ground to basically all things, and this is one where anytime it gets brought up, people are like, oh, okay, so what, no fighting and no hitting anymore? No, but like, how about a guy gets brained? Darnell Nurse gets fucking brained, and Ryan Reeves never even looked at his body. He saw a head and said, I'm gonna go through that. If he gets a 15-game suspension, I bet he doesn't do it again.
Department of Player Safety is a big shoe, but he did put in the concussion spotters. So
He
now
did.
anytime a
See,
guy
that's the
gets hit
thing.
in the head,
Like,
and
it's
even
not
when the
all bad.
players is
Like,
slamming his
that's
stick
huge.
saying I'm fine, nope, you're forced to go off. You got to go back into take your skates off, go back in the dark room and do your testing. And players don't like it because how many times have we seen it where a player is forced to miss a crucial end to a game because they have to do it? But it's like that's part of it. That is part of
Yeah.
looking after the players. So, but
Yeah. And
I think
you know
every
what this
NHL fan is in agreement that Department of Player Safety does need
yeah.
a massive overhaul.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think John Scott was pushing to be in on Department of Player Safety, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong.
Well, you know what? If anyone gets to, it'd be him, because they've almost exclusively hired in the player safety department either guys who are just absolute legends of the business, or guys who were fucking goons and they know exactly how to run the system of Department of Player Safety in the way that helps goons.
Even
So,
I think it was Brendan Shanahan was still head of player safety time. People like dogged on him at times, but it's like, yeah, he also wasn't afraid to dish out a 41 game suspension half the season. George Peros wouldn't even doesn't even think of going double digits.
yeah.
Like the player safety is in the worst spot it's ever been, and that is one thing I will say does need to change 100%, because guys are definitely not being held accountable for the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
And then us as fans, we don't get an explanation really for. I think we got one for the Ryan Reeves one. I think some came out kind of an explanation.
We do get
them. Like
them.
it wasn't very.
They're not in.
It doesn't satisfy you enough. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, have you ever actually watched any of the videos? Because they put out a video on every single suspension. Have you ever watched any of them?
Do they still do that?
Yeah, it's not. I'm pretty sure it's a person, not an AI voice. But the guy is so boring sounding, you could easily be convinced it's AI. And it's just Ryan Reeves comes across the circle and hits him in the head with elbowing. This is elbowing, a suspendable offense. It's like, holy, we know that. Like,
it's like you're in reffing school.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like. You're watching a video in reffing school.
It legitimately sounds like a driving ed video, like straight up, 100%. And the worst part is, like, they'll explain all that, but then at the end it's just, here's our arbitrary ruling. This is a hit to the head with the elbow. He has been given a 5-game suspension. Where'd you get 5 from? Where'd you get 5 from? Oh, you just...
Exactly, right? That's what, like, yeah, why is it 5? Why is it not more? Like, what are the criteria for it? Yeah, we don't get that. They
lay out all of the reasons for it, and then they're like, here's our arbitrary ruling. Thank you. And they just end the video.
Yeah. Yeah, the player safety, I will say, does need.
Yeah.
Needs. And
there have been, like you said with concussion spotters, there's definitely been good things over the years that Bettman's put in place. I think just in the last 5-ish years, he's especially just kind of times passed him by, and there's just guys who would run it a lot better.
I do agree that, like, I will say, like, at this point now, the league does need, I think, especially where it's at now and how much things are changing. I think this is, like, again, this is the perfect time to bring in a new commissioner. But I'm just saying, like, throughout the course of Gary Bettman's tenure, like, I don't think he's ruined the league by what people have said, especially after, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but the Vegas Golden Knights have been a humongous success, not only even in just winning the Stanley Cup, but just everything. Even Seattle, I'm curious about, I know there's always going to continue to be talk about future expansion, but
yeah, I think
before we move on, my question for you, what's the cap? How many teams is too many teams in the NHL? Like, at what point do we get where we're like, okay, we got to stop, no more expansion?
It's an interesting question. And I don't have a specific answer for you. I think a lot of people have specific numbers in their heads that they like to latch on to. They say, 32, you got 8 in each division, or 36, you got 9, If we ever get to 40, we have to cut it there because now we have 10 in each division. I don't know. I picture a world where we have 40 teams, 10 in each division, and we're like, fuck, this is a really good market. It would be a fun to have another team. Like, I don't know if there's a cap. Like, if there's people willing to put the money in to make the team, there has to be enough talent playing hockey that, everyone's fourth line isn't AHLers. And there has to be obviously a fan base wherever willing to go, but I don't know if there is a cap. For me, it starts getting pretty, in the world we know hockey as, it starts getting pretty fucking goofy around 40. But
40 is the absolute max for me.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally for me, I think 36 would be the perfect number to stop at, because we're at 32 right now. So you bring in 4 more, wherever people think is best for teams to go. I think there's lots of great options. 36 to me is just perfect, because then if you still want to roll, the biggest thing for me, if there was expansion, is making sure that it's even amongst the divisions, right? It was so fucking goofy having, at one point in time when the Central had less teams than everybody else, right? It was just kind of goofy and weird to me. Like, every team had 8 except they had 7 until Seattle came in. Like, 36 is good, because then if you want to roll 4 divisions, you can have 9 in each division. I think that might still be a little bit weird. What I would do if you go up to 36, I would just go back to the 6 division format. You've got 3 divisions in each conference. Then you can have 6 teams in each division. I think that's That's the way I would do it. Obviously, I know there's talks of bumping the regular season up to I think 84 games and removing
I
like
was
a
literally
couple
just gonna ask
preseason
if that
games.
was official. I'm gonna Google that.
It's not official, but it's been in the works. The NFL did it not too long ago, adding in an extra week to their season and removing. I think it was only 1 week of the preseason, might have been two, but I think it was just one. And I think it was great for the league doing that. So 40 is the max for expansion for me. Ideally, I think 36 is like if you get to 36, I think that's the perfect time to stop
Yeah. Like
because then whatever you want to do for your divisions, you've got lots of options.
yeah.
32 is also kind of nice though right now, just because like top
It is very
16
pleasing
make
to have
playoffs.
yeah,
Bottom
eight, eight,
16
eight, and
don't.
eight.
Well, I guess not really top 16, but like 16 make it. 16 because of the wild card is a bit weird.
Yeah. I I don't even disagree with any of that. It's just I think about a world where is 40 NHL teams, so we get, wherever we get them, Houston, Quebec, hell, maybe we get one in Saskatchewan. We probably get a ton more throughout the states. But we're sitting at 40, and then all of a sudden some guy with billions of dollars goes, "Hey, we want a team in Mexico City." And it's like they could have they could instantly have the biggest fan base in the NHL. Like all of a sudden the Mexican citizens are like, "Bro, what, we're going to have a hockey team? I don't know what that is, but it sounds sick."
Mhm.
Obviously a lot of them know what hockey is, but there's probably a lot of people who wouldn't know or wouldn't know the rules, who would just jump on the bandwagon, and
Or have
that just
never at
sounds like
least
so
been
much
to a
fun.
game. And then going to a game, like, anytime someone says they're not a
Completely
hockey
different vibe.
fan, yeah, like I've talked to numerous people and they're like, yeah, I'm not really a hockey fan. Like, have you ever been to a game live? They're like, no. I'm like, hey, well, don't say if you say you're not a fan of hockey, at least go to a game. And then
Yeah,
if you're still not fine, but
yeah.
it's one of the most
That's the
fun
test, isn't
events
it?
you can go to. Out of,
It's
out of
so good.
anything, concerts, sports, like hockey games are an absolute blast.
Yeah. Like it
In my opinion, there's nothing better.
Yeah. I just I get why, for sure. I just hate the thought of us being like, there's huge traction to get a team in London or something like that, which
Mhm.
might be really, really annoying for teams to fly to, but that could be really fun as well. And people in the UK, they would all latch onto that. Hell, most people in Europe, anywhere else in the world, would latch onto that and be like, "This is our team now." They would instantly have a massive fan base, and
Yeah.
they would have so much hype. Friggin' so many British people living in the States and in Canada, they would immediately be fans of those teams. That just sounds so fun to me.
It 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 does, like, I get
It's
it,
almost like the
but
Raptors in the NBA, right? How
mhm,
that's just Canada's team. We're
yeah,
all just cheering for them, basically. Like,
even the Blue Jays, right? Like, I get what you're saying, I totally do. It's just I
but
just
at
don't
a
get to
certain
the point
point,
where
it
the
does get
leagues, like, it's
oversaturated.
just yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I'm
Like,
not
I
saying
think
the
even
other
if it
side of
got to
it's
that
wrong.
point, I think it would be like, you look around and if there's a team not doing good or an owner that just is like, maybe you do something with that, but then it'd be tough because, yeah. There's always going to be change in the league regardless, and as long as things keep just projecting the way they're going and getting better, at the end of the day, I'm all for whatever happens
Yeah.
as long as we just keep seeing improvements to the game.
Yeah. The main thing I don't want to see ever happen is them get to a point where they say, some years you play this team, some years you don't. I
Yeah,
at minimum, hell, even if they have to trade years of being home or away, at minimum, or no, I guess you'd still want two games for every team. You want,
yeah,
you know, Tampa and Calgary are in the exact opposite corners of the NHL. They still play each other one home, one away every year. No matter what, if you're in a city with an NHL team, you can see any team play at least once per year.
yeah,
I think that has to stay.
yeah.
Because it would
I
suck being a fan of a team and getting to see them once every 2 or 3 years.
mhm. Well, like think of it this way.
Because that probably happens in the NFL, right? They probably have too many more
Yeah,
teams than
that's
games.
that's what I'm just looking up here.
Because like that would suck.
Let's see here.
Gotta travel to go
So
see a
yeah, so
game.
like in the NFL, right? And again, the NFL is like very different than the NHL. Like I get that. This just kind of put into terms of how kind of wild it can be. Um, so the greatest football player of all time, and that's not up for debate, Tom Brady. He played 335 games throughout his entire NFL career. Most of it with the New England Patriots, and then ending off a couple years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 335 games. Out of all that, he played the Arizona Cardinals 3 times.
That's insane.
So if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan during that entire stint um, of Tom Brady's career,
How is
you
that
only got to watch
possible?
your team play him 3 times.
He played for like 20 years, over 20
Yeah.
years. How is that even possible?
But you think about it, right?
What did he sit out some of those games, or did they straight up just play like 3 or 4 games in
No.
Arizona
Well,
the
think
entire
about it,
time?
right? Because before there used to be 16 games, I'm pretty sure. I think each team now plays 17, and you get your one bye week because they
You
now
get your
bumped it
one
up.
bye week,
So
yeah.
through the majority of his career, he played 16 games. Subtract 6 of those because you always play a home game and an away game against the teams in your division. That's only 10 remaining games throughout the season each year. And then there's
When
different ways they do it. They do scheduling based off like standings from the previous year before to determine like strength of schedules and whatnot. But like it's just weird that out of you know he was averaging basically every 100 games. He played one of the other
like that's crazy.
32
They
teams.
should even taking out the games for your division. You said what, 10 games you still get against all the other teams?
Yeah.
So if you're cycling through those, it should probably be every about 2.5 seasons you get to play them.
Yeah.
So it should
Yeah,
still be up.
every
It
two
should
two to
still be
three
up and
seasons.
around, 7 or 8 times he's played them at least.
Mhm.
The fact that just the strength of scheduling, the way they end up scheduling it, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And like that's what I don't want happening. Imagine being a Vancouver fan, or sorry, living in Vancouver and being like a Crosby fan. You just want to see Crosby, you want to see the Penguins play, and they just like don't come over for 3 years in a row. Like
Yeah.
that's just not how you grow the sport. And
Or you only play
you know
them
what?
once
The
a year,
NFL
but it's
probably
like you're
doesn't need
always
to
in
grow as a
Pittsburgh or
sport.
something.
They're
Yeah.
fucking massive, but
No,
you know
but
what?
I
The
get what you're
NHL
saying,
still
and
has a bit
and
to
I
go to do that.
I do agree with that. But we do need to keep trucking on forward here.
Yes.
We got sidetracked a little bit there. We'll go over to the other deal, the deal that just
Good
happened
conversation.
earlier today.
Yes.
The Colorado Avalanche finally have hopefully solved their goaltending problems. We didn't. I don't think we really talked about it, but last week they made a deal to acquire Scott Wedgwood from the Nashville Predators. Pretty even swap, kind of weird for the Predators considering they brought in Wedgwood. That's why Askarov had to leave. Weird for them, but hey, you know what? It's things
But
happening all
they
right for
got
Nashville. So
Eustace Anunen back in that, and you know what?
yay,
He's
yay,
younger.
yay.
He's
It
not quite
doesn't
as
help
good
them
yet,
though.
but I mean,
It
maybe he'll
doesn't
be
help.
something at some point.
What does that do? You
Yeah,
have Saros, so
he could be a
could
good
potentially
backup,
be a
I
solid
guess.
backup.
Yeah,
But
one of the rare trades that everyone seemed to talk about as if that was a lose-lose,
yeah,
which is
it
always
was.
rough.
I think in terms of now, it was a win for the Avs. This one, I think, is a pretty even trade, and we'll dissect it. But the Colorado Avalanche acquired goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood, and today is his birthday, so happy birthday, Blackwood. Forward Giovanni Smith, and a 2027 fifth-round pick from the San Jose Sharks. Going to San Jose is goaltender Alexander Gorgiev, 14% retained to match what Blackwood's cap hit was. Thank you for putting that in. I didn't know that it matched up.
Yeah.
Forward Nikolai Kovalenko, currently in his rookie season with the Avs. A 2026 second round pick and a 2025 fifth round pick that will go up to a fourth round pick if the Colorado Avalanche reach the Western Conference Finals. What are your thoughts on the trade here?
I mean, you could say that maybe the Sharks could have got more for it, held up the Avs a bit or something, but in the end, the Sharks got Blackwood last year for a 6th rounder, and he was the core piece in all that they just got back. Like, I think that's pretty damn good. Georgiev has been, I mean, he's been brutal for the Avs.
He's been bad.
I've caught a couple of their games. Like, don't get me wrong, he's let in some stinkers, but he
He
might
has
do
also
better.
the greatest defensive team.
They're bad. He might do
San
better with
Jose
the
is a better
Sharks.
defensive team. Like Colorado is a better team overall, better offensive team, more talent, yes. But I think in terms of actually playing a better defensive game, yeah, I think San Jose is better.
Yeah. And could you imagine if they could get value out of trading Georgiev? You know,
And I think they will.
probably not this season at this point, but
Well, he's on the last year of his contract.
oh, true.
And that's why I think they had Colorado retain a bit. Because, like, it's not like San Jose's cap crunched or anything. Like, if they wanted to take him on at his full cap hit, they easily could have. But they don't have any. They've used up all 3 of their retention slots, and one of them doesn't open up until July 1st. So having Colorado even retain just a little bit makes his contract more manageable to be moved, which I fully do expect that, whether it could be an hour and he's flipped, or it could be all the way up until the trade deadline. I do expect he does get flipped on the simple fact that, like, they already did have Colorado retain money, so it is a little bit easier to move him now with his contract, especially kind of having some of it already being taken on by the Avs. So
yeah, it'll
I do like that part.
14%, it goes down to about 2.5, 2.6 mil.
Which you can easily make that work. If you're trading him to a contender, you can take on a bad contract, or you can take on, a guy that they want to move on from who's making like 1.5 or something. You can make it work. If you need to get a third party in to retain a bit, there's teams out there that are willing to do that.
Yeah, the Blackhawks, please call me and retain. Like, they're like sitting there like, please, I want to retain 1.2 mil for a 3rd round pick, like, easy all day.
They would do it for even teams do it for a 6th, a 5th, like,
yeah,
especially on contracts with 1 year left. It's like you retain throughout the remainder of this season.
It costs
them
nothing to do it. It's free. It's free.
You're just getting free draft picks. Exactly right. The 2026 second round pick is awesome. I think getting a second round pick was, I kind of kept saying like, oh, a first, but it realistically wasn't going to happen. I think Blackwood is a good goalie. I think he did really good on the Sharks, despite, the Sharks not being a good team. It just wasn't realistic to get a first for him. But to get a second round pick, you get a 5th, which could come to a 4th.
They basically traded 5th round picks. The Avs got a 2027. The Sharks got a 2025. The Sharks just getting one sooner because, like, in my mind, those two are kind of their own separate thing. That's just a bit of extra value for the Sharks because theirs is sooner. And obviously, they're looking for prospect now, not prospects then.
Yeah. The second round pick, Kovalenko. Yeah. So I don't know a lot about Kovalenko. I know, like, he came over from the KHL. He's in his first year with the Avs. He hasn't put up great numbers, but he also really hasn't been getting any power play time, and just hasn't been getting a lot of ice time in general. Right?
As
the team kind of started to get
4th line.
I think he was up in their top 6 at one point, but again, like, as more guys are coming back from injury, Nichushkin, coming back in, as the team just got healthier, kind of kept pushing him down the lineup. So I don't know much about Kovalenko, but apparently I've seen a few people are pretty high on him and think he's got a lot of high upside. And so maybe, we'll get to see that translate a bit more, getting more opportunity with a Sharks team that's not as deep up front. So I like the deal for both teams. Obviously, the Avs get Blackwood in there. They now have they have Miles Wood, they have Scott Wedgwood, and they have Blackwood. So both their goalies, they got the Woods in the net there. It's a good deal for them. They needed a goalie. They went out and got 2. Hopefully it works for them, because that was really kind of the big hole for them. In San Jose, you get, not really a prospect, but like a young 25-year-old forward who's got high upside, um, as people are saying. Second round pick, if you can flip Georgiev for anything, that's just more value.
Yeah.
I like it for both sides. I really do.
Yeah, I think it's a good trade for both. Obviously, I think there's a lot more risk here for the Avalanche in the trade, just because if Blackwood can't produce and they really, really have to internalize at that point, it's the defensive structure, it's not the goalies. Then
Yeah,
they're
you can make a move for a defenseman at that point.
pretty bad spot. I don't even know if it's their defensemen. I think their forwards are also just really bad at helping out. Like, even if you have two really insane defensemen on the Avalanche, at best, it's still like a 5-on-3 when the other team has it in their zone. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and
like
and that is fair. You did mention that, like, you know, San Jose maybe could have gotten more from the Avs. The thing is the Avalanche were the perfect team. I think they're the only team that would have even been willing to give up this because, aside
yeah,
from really Edmonton, there's no contending team that's like
that needs a
was
goalie
really
near as
that like
bad.
needed a goalie bad. Like no one needed a goalie more bad than Colorado did.
Exactly. That's the only
And they
reason
and
I
they
thought
needed
they
to make
might
a
be able to
move
get more is
soon.
because the Avs are
Yeah.
so desperate.
But again, right? Like I kind of think, yeah, maybe sounds like could have gotten more considering how good Blackwood was last year and this year. Um, but you know what? Maybe Kovalenko. I think there's
Yeah,
more to
this is nothing
Kovalenko than we
to
know.
nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, like I think, and you know what? If any deal Mike Grier's done has turned out to do
Uh,
wonders in terms of when you grab kind of an
yeah.
unknown in a player.
Again,
So
they got him for a sixth last year.
yeah,
So a sixth round pick, Giovanni Smith, and a fifth for Gorgiev, Kovalenko, a second and a fifth,
yeah.
and a bunch of good games played out of a goaltender. That's tidy work.
Yeah, yeah, I really like it. I think
It's
it's great work
at
by
worst, it's
for
like lost
both GMs.
potential on a trade. Like
Yeah,
they still clearly won.
and you know what? If Kovalenko even is a he just caps out at a third liner who drops 35 to 40 points. That straight up for Blackwood, I would do considering when you look at San Jose, they've got their goalie of the future already in Askarov. This deal unfortunately doesn't open up a window for him yet because Georgiev is coming back. But Blackwood wasn't part of the long term plan, so getting assets back. If you can flip Georgiev, great. If you just have to ride the season out and you let him walk, whatever. You're getting value back
Do
more
you think
than what you started out with a couple years ago.
the
So
retention is the part that makes me think they do want to kind of rebuild up how people view Gorgiev and move him at the
I think
deadline?
I really do think that's what they're gonna do. Like you can't ride him every game, like kind of like you were able to with the Blackwood. Like I don't think you can do that with Georgiev. But kind of run him in a
I
tandem,
just
let him boost his confidence up, get his numbers up a bit, and I think they will flip him.
are they at the point where you think the Sharks are done trying to see if Vanacek is worth anything to people? Like they can't
No,
retain.
Blackwood was just he was exactly Blackwood was just easier to move because and first of all, Blackwood has been the better goalie this year. Um,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not
his
saying in this
his
trade. I'm
con it was
saying
just
for a
easier to move
future
him with
trade.
his contract. Yeah. Well, Vanacek, he's on the last year of his deal too, right?
Exactly,
At
and that's why
3.4.
I don't think they're going to be able to trade him for anything. So I think
I think
them.
you maybe could. I think they look that route maybe if they can't move Georgiev. Maybe they look to see if Vanacek, but
Like
Vanacek probably just does ride the season out with the Sharks. Maybe they bring him back as
that's
a backup next year.
I'm thinking they should put him in the minors. Get Askarov up here. Like I don't know. I like even
Yeah.
if Askarov isn't great in the NHL yet, I feel like he's kind of done all he can in the AHL.
Oh no, he's been phenomenal in the AHL in his 2 games.
Yeah,
We're not going to
and
talk
they
about the first goal he allowed against the
okay.
Blues because that one was horrific on his own
Yeah,
end.
because I admittedly didn't get to see those, but
I don't think you can move
I was just thinking like
Vanacek.
if you're bringing Gorgiev in and having the other team retain on him, clearly you want to move him because it's not a cap issue. They're not trying to line the pockets of the owner. They don't care about that.
Mhm.
So what is it for? It has to be to move him. But that means what? Are you going to run Vanacek and Gorgiev? Like, I just,
Yeah, I
I
don't I
just,
don't hate it though.
I do because you're not getting Miles in for.
Yeah, but Askarov's still young. Like he is only 22. His he it's I think it's already kind of been I think it's basically a done deal. Like next year he will kind of be either the starter or running in a tandem because that's when his 2 million per year I think extension kicks in for 2 years, kind
Yeah,
of that low bridge deal. He's put up solid numbers in the AHL in his 2 games. He's doing phenomenal in the AHL right now. Like he's got just gross numbers.
yeah.
12 games played, 3 shutouts, a 175 goals against, a 946 save percentage. He's dominating in the AHL. Uh,
I
he's on a
feel like
winning
he
team
has to
down
get used
there,
to NHL level shots. Like he's killing it in the AHL.
which is why I think it'll be Georgiev. Again, don't know when. My assumption is probably more towards around the trade deadline once they kind of build him back up. He gets moved, and then I think that's when Askarov comes up, and then he plays 10 to 12 games down the stretch to end the season off. And so that's where you kind of really ride him first, and then you kind of let him get into it. If you want to send him back down for an NHL playoff run at the end of the year, you totally can.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
that's
I think
that's the way
that's
I
good
would
for him.
do it. Like I think
Yeah, I just
the
think they
Sharks
need
team is
to.
kind of capped out at how good they are,
Yeah,
right? Like they went on that insane stretch. I do think that was like the best we're going to see of them. They're not going to be a team like that all season long.
yeah.
So I think you're better off putting Askarov in a winning environment
I was gonna say
instead of
just the
being on a
bottom
losing
line. They
team.
need to do what's best for Askarov's development.
Yeah,
Like whether that means Vanacek plays in the NHL, whether that means he is scratched or he is in the AHL. I don't even think you have to. That's the absolute afterthought. You have to do
yeah.
whatever's best for the
Which
development of Askarov, not even what's good for either team in the crease.
which again I think
Because
is the right
nobody
way. Like look
expected
at
them to win
Calgary,
this.
right? Like the whole talk last year was Dustin Wolf needs to be in he needs to be in the NHL. They gave him one more in the AHL. Look at him now though. Right?
Yeah,
Like I'm not saying he wouldn't be as good if they played him all of last year. We don't know. But
yeah,
the way that Calgary went about it, you can't say they did it the wrong way.
yeah.
At least if you think they could have done it differently, sure, but they didn't do it wrong. I'm fine with Askarov dominating the AHL, being in a winning environment for a little bit longer, and then after the trade deadline, that's when you can ride him for 5 games in a row. See how it works over 5 games. You give him some like a game off or two, and that's where you really kind of give him his
Looking at the
NHL
schedule
time
and you could plan out now probably which games he's going to play.
from trade deadline onward.
Yeah.
I don't know the schedule,
No,
but
no, but like
probably.
I'm sure you could look at it and be like, okay, these are who the Sharks playing. I bet he's going to play against I bet he's going to get these 2 games in a row that are, you know, the Ducks and the Blackhawks or something like that.
Yeah, and
Probably
you
get
know
him a
what?
couple games against teams like that, and then you throw him one in there against the Rangers or something, and you see how he does.
A part of the reason also maybe why I'm more like on the side of just let Askarov keep winning, stay down and come is like San Jose does need to lose some games, right? Like as sick as it would be for them to actually push for a playoff spot, like that'd be awesome. It's not realistic.
They're a little
Uh,
good right now.
I
They're
I,
a
I
little too
think
good.
I'm pretty sure. I really think they only need one more like top four pick. If you get up in the top three, if you get a top two, if you get a one first overall again, awesome. But I think if you end up in the top four and you get one of those the one of the surefire players out of that
The
draft
top
that's going to be in the
four
top
is
four,
way better than the top five this year.
yeah,
That the drop off from, and we don't even know who's gonna be picked fourth. We just know the top four is a consensus cut above than
yeah. Like if you're
500.
drafting fifth overall, like Montreal was last year, you're not going to get a Demidov fall to you. If you're the Flyers, a couple years ago, you're not going to get Michkov fall to you at 7. You want to be in that top four. So I think if San Jose, you know, sucks and you get another top four pick, I think you're kind of at the spot where you're like, you've got the pieces now and you can start to, you know, come out of this rebuild. I think really this kind of could be the last year of really full on sucking before you really start to actually see this team start to become not a contender, but a team pushing for a playoff spot at least.
Yeah,
And this
I think
trade helped in doing that because Blackwood was he was making sure that San Jose was winning games that they probably should have lost.
like, yeah, I completely agree, and I think, yeah, as soon as next year they're going to be. I'm trying to find a comparable team, maybe like a St. Louis Blues, who like probably aren't making the playoffs. Like, they're probably less likely to make it than the Blues this year, but like they're in it. They're in the fight. They're fighting for spots 5, 6 in the division, and yeah, I could see it easily as happening as soon as next year. And
Yeah,
adding another top pick onto it would be massive. So you know what? You know what? If it's a good problem to have, being like, fuck, our young goalie's too good. He might win us a couple too many games.
exactly, right? Because
That's
like
that's
as
the
a
easiest way to win games. Get a good
like
goaltender. Like we saw
looking
Chicago lose out on a couple of picks in the last few years because they had uh whoever it was, Peter Mrazek, kept stealing them
well,
games.
yeah, because what San Jose finished like 3 points below Chicago last year. Without Pete Mrazek, Chicago finishes in last. They have Celebrini as well now.
Easily.
If
Too.
Mrazek
Like
didn't stand on
3
his head,
points over a season, like Mrazek was
yeah.
great.
Like as a Sharks fan, when I saw Blackwood start, it's like, okay, we have a chance to win this game. Now I don't care if it says Vitek Vanacek, Alex Georgiev. It's like, fuck, we're in for a we might be in for a shit kicking.
We're not looking at that. We're looking at that. We're looking at his Celebrity in the lineup.
Yeah, but good deal for both sides. I like it for Colorado. It helps solve their issue in the goaltending. So.
If it is a goaltending issue.
Yeah, I guess that's
sometimes it looks like
it.
Sometimes it looks like a team.
And you know what, Giovanni Smith.
Issue.
We didn't really talk about him. He's a nice ad for the Avs. I liked him with San Jose. He's one of those sandpaper guys, fourth liner. I personally think he can be solid in his own end. He's not going to put up points, but he'll drop the gloves. He'll help protect some of their younger guys out there, their smaller guys. That's a nice guy to have that you can slot in the playoffs potentially if you need, or just against a team like the Rangers if they decide to, dress Matt Rempe. You can throw Smith in there and have him be the one to go out there and chuck some knocks. So
yeah, maybe every once in a while a game like that, throw him in there, scratch Drouin or somebody who you think might want a day of rest for injuries, and having extra guys, having 13, 14 NHL caliber players is never bad.
It never hurts for your team to get tougher.
Yeah,
that's what kind of put the Rangers over the hump when they were kind of stuck in the middle. Getting a little bit tougher did wonders for them. A lot of that said toughness is now gone, though.
Oh yeah. Looks like we have one other thing. I didn't actually hear about this until you put in the chat here, but after multiple injuries, Beckett Seneca and Zane Parekh have both been added to Team Canada's World Junior camp. So they are not actually on the roster, right? They're just
they're in the mix.
They're in the running.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beckett Seneca has been he's been torching it up in the OHL since his snub of not getting initial invite. So with an injury happening the way he's been playing, it was a no-brainer. Zane Parekh, I thought he already should have at least, I'm not saying he should be on the team, but he should have at least been invited to the camp to showcase what he's got. So this is two huge ads for Canada.
I will say, I mean, it's way too early to tell. OHL is very different from the NHL. Beckett Seneca not looking like a bad pick necessarily at number 3 as much as at the time. He looks really good.
He does, and the biggest thing, right, is his massive growth spurt. I think is really what kind of helped raise his draft stock. Like, if I'm still looking at, like, if I'm the Ducks, I still would have taken Ivan Demidov, who's torching it up in the KHL, which is head and shoulders above the OHL. But Beckett Seneca, like, it's not looking like it's still a reach in my opinion. Like, I'm not ready to be like, oh, it was the right pick or run. It's still a reach, but it's nowhere near as much of a reach as we thought initially at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily change the fact that it was a reach. Everyone thought he was going outside the top 10, probably. So, like,
Yeah.
no matter how his career turns out, it was always a reach. It's just, were the Ducks smart to reach, or
Yeah.
uh, did they have their head in the clouds?
Yeah. It's looking, you're starting to see why they made it instead of being like, why did they pick him? You're kind of like, all right, I see what they were getting
Yeah.
at. Like, and
And
you
you know
know
what?
what? Again, him being a that growth spurt is huge. Like, if he was a bit smaller, he might have fallen outside the first round. But
Yeah.
because he got so much bigger, like that's that is huge as well. Like that
Yeah.
that really does help.
And I genuinely wonder, because I haven't heard anybody talk about this. I wonder if there was an internal discussion of, I don't think nobody's taken Seneca in the top 8, at least guaranteed. Like, do we want to trade down? And I wonder if somebody in the Ducks organization went, I don't know, how much does that help the confidence, and how special does it feel for Seneca if we just take him at 3? Like, we don't trade down, we don't risk losing him, we just take him at 3 and leave it at that. Obviously, they could have got more assets, but I do wonder if part of it is we
Maybe,
we want him to know that, like, we fucking want him
but like you
on our
could have
team.
easily just done something. Like you even could have gone to Montreal because Montreal was really hard to meet up. You could have just been like, hey, we'll swap third overall, fifth overall. Give
But
us
that's the thing. Then at that point, why not swap down to 10 and pick him up there, and then, like, it's
But like, if it is a confidence thing, like fifth
I
overall,
do
still ain't
wonder if
fucking
it's
bad.
that's part of it. If it's, they interviewed him, they know the personality, and they're like, we know this kid is going to appreciate the fuck out of just being taken as soon as we can.
And it very well could be. I don't think
I have
that
no idea if
is.
that's the case,
Yeah,
but
if it was, I don't think that's enough to when you look at maybe what, like, if you could have stiff armed Montreal potentially, even if they like said no, we're not doing it. Even if you didn't take Demidov, but even being like, hey, you want Demidov, like trade up to 3, you can for sure get him. Give us even just a second round pick, and we'll
yeah,
move back to 5. You still get your guy all along. Montreal gets their guy, but you just get a little extra something.
yeah,
But oh, I will say for the Ducks, it is starting. I'm starting to like the pick more.
yeah.
Like I'm
And
starting to be like, yeah, I see what they were looking at here.
yeah, another pick
Because he's
doing
been on
very well
fire
as of
lately.
late. Shane Wright, I believe he has 6 goals in his last 8 games.
Yeah,
He's heating
yeah,
up.
he's been playing very well, and it's good. Like that's a
Yeah,
big reason of why they um why they have like the coaching staff that they brought in, right? They kind of brought up a lot of their coaching, like
a lot of
Dan
the guys from
Bosma,
the AHL. Yeah,
yeah, from the HL, because it's to help the progression of a lot of their young guys were down there, and we're starting to see Shane Wright finally put it together here now in the NHL. So I think it just took a little bit of adjustment. Like the skill was there, it is a big adjustment, and uh, it's starting to click. And I hope it's not just a hot streak, right? I hope this is Shane Wright is finally here now and ready to make some
yep.
noise. Try and show
Be
people,
the
hey, maybe I
guy.
should have been first overall.
Yeah, I would love to see him
Although
prove
Logan
some people
Cooley's
wrong.
looking damn good.
Yeah,
He's looking good.
that's fair as well. Do we
What else
have
do we got
anything
here?
else? Is that
Uh,
I kind of think that's.
Thatcher Demko back in
Oh,
the
we got
lineup for
those.
Vancouver. Didn't play last night, but is expected to play at some point here now as he
Yeah,
is
he was the backup.
healthy.
Yeah,
Shelovs is in the AHL now. So it'll be Lankinen and Demko. That's a very solid tandem for the Canucks. Chicago Blackhawks fired the second head coach of the season, firing Luke Richardson. AHL head coach Anders Sorensen will replace him as the interim head coach. It sounds like it'll be for the remainder of the season.
unless an incredibly good coach
Yeah,
ends up being free. But
yeah.
when
It
was the last
sounds
time
like the
that
plan is.
happened?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Honestly, I still think Drew Bannister needs to get another shot somewhere. I think he can be a good coach. Uh, so
Absolutely.
you know what?
You know what? Honestly, Nashville should fire Brunette and pick up Drew Bannister.
Yeah. Actually,
think
I
that
do want to talk about something with Nashville in a sec here. With Chicago, Luke Richardson, he he was basically like the David Quinn on San Jose. You know, the coach brought in to kind of lead the team through the tough lows of the rebuild. He knew he was going to be canned eventually. Like he wasn't going to be the guy to lead him out of the rebuild and back into contenders, and I think he knew that. So it was bound to happen eventually. I'm curious to see, you know, if it's something kind of like what happened with Winnipeg, right? Where uh, who was their coach last year who retired? I'm blanking
I
on the
retired.
name.
Oh, in Winnipeg?
Yeah,
Crap. It's not Paul Maurice.
no, it's not Paul Maurice. What is his name? I forget his name,
Jets
man.
coach retired.
I should
Rick
remember it.
Bonus.
Rick Bonus. So when Rick Bonus, kind of stepped away for a little bit last season due to personal reasons, their assistant coach stepped up and took over the helm, and to the point where he was the one that was given the job after Bonus retired. And look at how good Winnipeg's doing,
Yeah, you know what?
right? So maybe this could be it for
Iron
Chicago.
Corps,
Maybe,
man.
maybe Sorensen comes in and changes the culture for the team, and he very well could just earn that job moving forward. So sorry, Nashville.
Nashville.
You think they should
Pick up Drew Bannister.
Drew
Yeah.
Bannister? I wouldn't hate that. It's tough with Nashville. Who's the top team in the league right now? Number one.
Number one.
Number one.
Oh, I mean, there's 3 teams tied: the Jets, the Wild, and the Capitals.
The Wild. Who's their head coach? I'll tell you who. None other than John Hines. Who fired John Hines 2 years ago?
I'd imagine it was the Predators.
It was the Nashville Predators. Starting to look like Nashville maybe shouldn't have jumped the gun in firing him. I wasn't super high on him.
To be
But
fair,
you know
it was a
what?
different GM and stuff at the time, but
Uh,
I think
oh, I guess, yeah.
it would have still been Poyle.
Yeah. But, I think coaching is a big thing when we're talking about Nashville. I think Brunette is a good coach.
It's the
I just
biggest
don't
thing.
think it's working in Nashville. And again,
They
look at
can't-
Colorado.
They have
There
so
was an
much
issue
goal
and they
scoring talent, and they can't score goals. They've been shut out
Yeah.
6 times this year.
Yeah.
They've been shut out 6 times. How many games have they played? 28 games, and 6 times they've scored 0 goals.
With all that talent that they not only had, but all the
Didn't-
talent they brought in.
Didn't the first game of the year for the Leafs, didn't they get shut out by the Canadiens? And that was their first time being shut out in like 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
They've got 6 already. Like,
A team that was already in the
they're very
playoffs
different
last
teams,
year.
but like
They brought
they
in
were already good, and then they bring in a guy who scored 60, a guy who scored 40, a Conn Smythe winner, no less. Like,
yeah, Brady Shea, who I believe was he like, I think 2 years ago, I think he was like 3rd in defenseman goals, and last year I think he was like 7th or something.
yeah. And then he got
And then,
dropped
yeah,
in our
like-
fantasy league earlier today. Like,
Yeah, I gave up on him. I tried.
like,
I really tried, but it wasn't working. So,
I
had
don't
to
know
move
how
on.
to deal with predators in like players in fantasy. Like they should be
Yeah.
doing good, but barring Roman Yossi,
They're a great
Saros.
defensive team. Like, their defensive numbers are good. They're getting good goaltending.
Great.
Their defensemen are playing. They have good defensive numbers. The team just can't score. And
Yeah.
I look at Colorado. It took a little bit longer than they probably wanted, but they had an issue in front of them, and they went out and addressed it. Maybe it's a little bit easier to just make a trade for a couple of goalies than doing a whole coach change. But you know what? At this point, I think like it's a trade doesn't help Nashville. I think the team is in place.
They just
They're
it's
not
just not
unit.
working. They just need to.
Yeah.
They need to just wipe the slate clean. Brunette's not. I don't even think he's a bad coach. In fact, I think he's a good coach.
I think he's a good
very
coach. Yeah,
coach. But
it just
it's
doesn't
not
work.
going to work there. They have old guys who have been there, young guys who are just coming in, guys from all over who have different thinkings on how a team is run and coached and systems. I think it's all too much. and it's not going well, so nobody would blame them for firing the coach. Just wipe the slate clean, bring in a guy like Drew Bannister, and okay, I don't even know how shit was going before, and I have a feeling you guys don't either, but this is how we do it going forward. And I really do think if they made that change now, I think they have a good chance at making the playoffs.
I do too. I think if they wait like
because they should right now,
2 or
but
3 more
currently
weeks,
they're
I
on a
think they could be
7-game losing
cooked.
streak.
Yeah. A lot of games of which I'm pretty sure there's at least a couple where they were winning, like in the third period, and then they just collapse.
What are there any teams that have more blown leads than them this year?
Oh,
Maybe
the
the
Islanders.
Islanders.
Oh yeah, the Islanders definitely do.
They've had a
Yeah,
tough
like
go of it.
if Nashville waits, like if they don't do something by the end of the month, I think they're probably cooked.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I think
you
something's
can't
gotta
wait till
happen.
January to be like, all right, let's make the playoffs.
Yeah, and people say, "Oh, the Blues that was a once in a lifetime thing." I think we witnessed. That was truly a special time.
Said like, they this Predators team has the talent. Like, they could go from pretty damn close to bottom of the league to in a playoff spot. They would it's not going to just click though, is the thing. It would take a coaching change or something of that caliber.
Something has to give. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
they're not just going to wake up one day and be like, oh, I forgot. I can just like bury the puck.
Yeah. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So we'll keep waiting around with Nashville for something to happen. But for Chicago, I think it brings a little bit of excitement to them. New coach, new system. Curious to see how that goes. It's all just about getting Bedard going, because when Bedard is on his game, he can still take over the game. In one night. So
yeah,
curious to see how it goes for them. Obviously, last place
they'll
in the
keep
league.
drafting high up. People want to go to their team. They're an original 6 team. People will want to go there based on that and playing with Bedard. So, you literally just have to develop him, surround him with enough talent that he can do that. That's really it.
Yeah.
They're not doing great, but nobody expected them to. They're on the course.
Yeah.
Get Bedard going a little bit more. But
all right. Well, that wraps up everything we got here on the news list here. Brady, do you have anything here to wrap this one up?
One other thing I just want to, it's not even something to bring up. I just want to list off some teams, and I might want to start doing this a bit more going forward. Just highlighting teams that are on current streaks. Any team that has won or lost more than 3 games in a row.
Okay, I like that.
Just keeping up on who's hot in the league. Yeah, I'm going streaking, baby.
Who's hot and who's not?
Who's hot and who's not?
Because you're doing teams on losing streaks as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Who's hot? Who's not?
Yeah, I just got the win streak column here and the loss streak, and whoever has a 3 or higher. So the Bruins are on a 4-game win streak. The Sabres are on a 6-game losing streak. Hardly being outdone, the Red Wings are on a 5-game losing streak. I think those two actually face today, so we'll see if we get the first ever double losing game.
Could happen.
The Flyers are on a 3-game lose streak. And moving over to the West, 7 losses in a row for the Preds, 5 losses in a row for the Blackhawks, 3 wins in a row for the Golden Knights, 5 wins in a row for the LA Kings, and that is it for the streaks.
Couple hot teams, couple not hot teams.
I like that. A lot of teams that make sense that they're on runs right now.
And be curious when we come back later this week. We'll see who's still intact or who's maybe a new addition to this list.
Yeah, they it was getting a little sketchy there as a Lightning fan. A lot of those teams were creeping up behind us, and all of a sudden they are just looking at the win column in their last 10. The Senators 4, the Sabres 3, the Red Wings 3. Like, they are all having a rough go of it.
Like a lot of the teams that we didn't expect to maybe necessarily be in the playoffs, but like at least kind of be competitive within that Atlantic division, right? Like I thought that division was going to be a dog fight this year, and it's really really looking like we might not get that.
And you know what? Like I said, the Bruins just won 4 in a row. Before that, that's 8 points. They were down at 25 points. That would put them tied with the Sabres. So before their current hot streak here, they were right in there with the Sens and the Sabres. So
yeah, just all it takes is just going on a little bit of a heater can get you right back in the mix.
Yeah,
that's all Tampa, it takes.
Very few games played. We're still sitting at 25. I think we're lowest in the league. I don't think.
I'll say some teams have played 30, haven't they?
Yeah, the Sharks have played 30. The Ducks is the only other team that's only played 25. We're both tied for the least. We just like had our week where we played no games, and then we played one game and had another 5-day streak with no games.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
I was starving.
Yeah, that was weird.
Although we had a lot of injuries going into it, so I didn't exactly mind the timing.
Might have helped, actually, yeah. All right, well, I do believe that wraps up everything for this episode. Yes. All the trades, all the news, all the beef going on between management and players, all the disgruntled players. I believe this is right now, all the GMs are currently in Florida for, I don't know exactly what they call it, GM meet and greet.
The GM summit or whatever.
So be curious to know how these trades happened. If they just sat down and talked it out, or
with the Senators owner.
Oh, okay.
They had whatever
like a fight there or something
meeting, and it sounds like he didn't outright say anything, but he made a lot of backhanded comments to quite a few people of like, it feels a little like tampering, to the point where people started talking about it.
Well, the Sens have a new owner, don't they? So Buddy's coming in and trying to create some drama. So you know what? I love it.
Yeah. It's provocative. Gets the people going.
But that does wrap up everything we got for this episode. Braden, as always, give us one final take-home thought here.
I'm trying to think. What's his name? Who's almost leading the league in points? There's like all the usual suspects. Yes. Holy shit. Good on Marty Natchez, man. There's a lot of great play, and like obviously Kaprizov as well, who I believe is leading the league in points, but
we already knew Krill.
Out of the top like 10 guys there, you expect 9 out of 10 of them to be in that conversation, and then there's Marty Natchez. He's crushing it.
Guy was almost traded for Pettersson last season. That's not to be forgotten.
Oh, fuck. It might have been a better looking trade than we might have thought.
Oh, we'll maybe dive into that later.
We've been waiting like 6 years for Pettersson to break out. He's broke out approximately 1 year.
Yeah. It's not looking so bad now. No. Maybe Carolina made the right move. And a lot cheaper Natchez right now. But that does wrap up everything for this episode. We do hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want to talk hockey, join in on the conversations or let us know your thoughts about any of these trades. Did the Rangers handle right? You can let us know down below. Links are in the description of every episode. Go click them. Come over to any of our socials. Come talk hockey. Come say hi. Just talk hockey with us. It's a good time to talk hockey. League's in a good spot. But once again, we do hope you guys
don't make us come in at you on Twitter. You don't want us coming to you. You want to come to us. Okay?
Yeah, you don't want us knocking on your door. We are.
We get weird when we get in your DMs. Okay,
we
want to
be in our DMs. Weird. Yeah. But that does wrap up everything for this episode. That's all. We'll see you guys out on the ice later this week on Friday.